So honestly, I think establishing a realistic budget and getting buy-in from leadership is obviously really important. Mike, do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, so back to my example around this joint venture, the sort of rapid scale up. Um, if I'm honest, it wasn't that difficult to get budget because the need was there. The fire was under our feet in terms of hiring. But what I wanted to say is that, and this is also maybe a shameless plug for RecTech as well, but we honestly, using a comparison service like this really, really helped me to get budget sign off because once they go through the needs analysis with you, you're presented with a very detailed analysis of the whole market, your needs versus the market, and all of the costs of each of the options. So if I was just to go to our procurement department and say, can I have 50 grand, please, to buy this? I would have been hounded with 1,000 questions and follow-ups and more information. But when I go to them with this document with the analysis all done, the prices all listed, they can see that the due diligence on the market has been done. It ranks all of the options for us in terms of what we need and all of the prices. So actually, that's what helped me get a very, very quick budget sign off.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And we're going to go into sort of budget and pricing a little bit later as well, but no, really good. I think, Johnny, we were talking about sometimes it's important to get buy-in from leadership even before we start talking about budgets.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a conversation about budget and until you make it not about the budget. And I think that's really where to start with that conversation is getting that buy-in from leadership before you talk about the budget. And, really it's about what challenges it's going to solve. So, do leadership really understand what you're trying to achieve by doing it? What are your current challenges? What are the limitations? What's the impact of solving those? And I think if everybody is in agreement with the need to solve those challenges, then, budget does become a bit more of a secondary consideration. So, sacrifice the nice to haves, I guess, but clearly don't compromise on the essential criteria there. And, when you get to that point, essentially the price is the price at that point, and then you can present that back to leadership. And if everybody understands what you're trying to achieve by putting it in place, and it's more a conversation about value rather than simply cost. And I think that's a way to move away from it, because otherwise, if it is purely about budget, you're going to end up with a system that maybe doesn't solve those challenges, isn't fit for purpose.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because if you only think about, let's say you've got a 50K budget and you're working within the confines of that budget, then you might miss out on a potentially wonderful solution that can do loads more because it's 51K or whatever the situation might be. I think focusing on value is extremely important. And I think at the beginning of the process, which is typically when the budget is set, you've gone out to market, maybe you've done a little bit of research, you've built a business case like the example that Mike put together there, and then you're securing that budget before you've actually maybe gone through the process of having demonstrations and understanding what that value looks like. I think it's really easy to kind of do that too early and get sidetracked by the limitations that a budget can present. So it's a really good point, Jonathan.
I think as well, just to add, it's getting that buy-in from the leadership early on, right at the beginning, just sets up for that potential new system coming in to be a success, whether it's ATS, HRIS or whatever. If you don't have buy-in from leadership or half-hearted, it sets up for failure later down the line.
I think you're constantly going into battle otherwise, aren't you? Can I have more money for this? And usually the answer is no, unless people understand what you're trying to achieve from it.
And completely. The variation, if you look at kind of the variation in pricing across the industry, like if we're talking about applicant tracking systems, there's over 850 of them in the market. And the variation in pricing is extreme. And I have visibility on most of this, and all of the vendors that partner with RecTech, it's over 120. of them, you know, they're giving us detailed information about their pricing, and honestly, the variation in that pricing is extreme, and the variation in what they offer is also, it's vast. So it's so difficult to set a budget until, yeah, we keep going back to value. I think Jonathan's a good point is just focus on the value it adds and maybe get an initial budget and then tweak it.
And then change it totally. But your system doesn't put on the pricing when they're building up a comparison list.
It doesn't. It gives them a sort of 1 to 5 scale to get them thinking about whether they're looking for, you know, an entry-level solution or an all-singing, all-dancing enterprise solution, or somewhere in between. And it is a tricky one, because, and we sort of covered this earlier, didn't we, when we were talking about you know, getting your budget early doors and then finding out that actually there's solutions out there that can have way more value, and therefore you need to go back and increase your budget. It's one of those things where, I guess, slightly contentious. You don't necessarily want to be thinking about that budget when you're providing somebody with a short list of vendors, because you don't necessarily want to eliminate vendors that actually would be a really good fit, but maybe are slightly outside of their budget. But actually, when they get a demonstration of that particular solution and they realize that there's far more value to be had from that platform, they can go back to the business and secure that additional budget. So yeah, we don't eliminate vendors based on price in our platform. But also at the same time, we don't take a specific budget or highlight, you know, precisely what the pricing will be. We give you an indication on a scale of 1 to 5.
Yeah, I think it's important, isn't it? It's more around, we talked about this earlier, but Johnny talked about it, the value add, you know, is really important, and pricing sort of is important, right? But, you know, really you've got to look at, you know, the business as a whole and where it's going long term, as to how you set that budget. Johnny, how do you measure return on investment of an ATS?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty key part of it, really, isn't it? You know, if you think of combination of cost savings and value add, you know, straight line return on investment, it needs to either save you money, increase the quality within your hiring, or increase efficiency, or ultimately, ideally, all three of those things. So, you know, if you're looking purely at costs, you know, is your cost per hire coming down? Ultimately, is a pretty key indicator to that. So, you know, increased automation gives greater recruiter productivity, I guess. So less reliance on external agencies, reducing your time to hire. You know, these are all things that are going to positively impact that cost per hire and bring it down. And then more broadly, sort of value and the value add on that, things like candidate experience. So, you know, quality of hire, retention, candidate experience, you know, they're all good indicators of value. You know, even sense check with your hiring managers, you know, what is their feedback in terms of the quality of the hires or the quality of individuals at interview or final stage interview since you started using the ATS. But, you know, a positive candidate experience is going to give you better employer branding. It's going to make you more attractive in the market, and that, you know, ultimately leads to better candidate attraction. The quality of the hire even has a knock-on effect on retention rates. So, you know, it's that cost and value add balance.
I think the CX piece is so important at the moment. You know, candidates have been quite vocal about poor processes in the current recruitment landscape. So, you know, I think it's that quality of hire, retention is so important nowadays.